Oh, you're muted. Wait. Hang on. Your mic is still muted. You're muted.
In the world did that?
But whatever it was that you were saying was well animated.
It was well animated.
I saw hands moving. You were going. That's right.
Hey,
listeners, we are pros. Don't try this at home.
I am Italian today, so we're going to be seeing a lot of this.
Exactly.
I was basically just saying, welcome. We've got a global reach. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're at on the planet.
Yeah, we do have a global reach. That's fun to be. So for folks in Japan, what's it? Ikaga desu ka?
Ohayou gozaimasu.
And in Brazil, it would be bom dia.
Bom dia.
In Russia, Strasvicha.
Germany, Guten Tag.
Guten Tag, yeah. Hola.
Hola. Yeah. Hola will cover a whole lot of the planet.
Bonjour.
Bonjour, mon ami. Yeah.
Bonjour. Speak with your lips tight. Bonjour, mon ami.
Bonjour. So, speaking with the lips tight, we're going to be going into a leadership conversation.
Yes, we are.
We're going to have a little bit of fun with.
Yeah, this is a good one. The visionary trap.
That's what we're calling this. So,
leaders.
Yes. Throw that, the visionary trap.
The visionary trap.
And I love this conversation, and what we've got set up with is because, I mean, everybody talks about, when they're talking about leadership, the word vision always gets introduced into the mix.
Every time.
And I cannot tell you the number of times I've wrestled with executives and executive teams as they've been trying to wordsmith. We got to get the words right. Guys, time out. What's important about a vision isn't what it is. What's important about a vision is what it makes possible. And we're going to unbundle that today.
Yes. Yeah. It is that thing. I am the visionary, therefore I must be able to say it correctly.
Yes.
No.
Where's your vision? Well, I'm sitting on it. I've got it right here on this little note card.
Or taped to the poster behind my desk.
Yeah, it's artwork up on the wall. There's our vision right over there.
That's right. Tell me what it says. I don't know.
I don't know, but what does it do? Well, that's a different question.
What does it make possible? I don't know.
So we always start off with this.
Yeah.
Kind of frame the problem so that we can actually talk about it from a perspective of how are you going to do something with this stuff?
Yeah. Yeah.
Practical.
I love that. This is reminiscent of a call we had this morning.
Yes.
We were on. I think it was all four of these on that call that kind of preeminently, but I love the kind of the first one. You change direction before momentum forms.
Yep. In our minds as leaders, we have already gotten there, wherever there might be, but there's lag in the system.
Yeah.
This is one of the things that we actually mentioned in the call that we had with the client today was actually two things. Alignment is a horizontal process, and most of the conversations that you need to have are not going to be tactical in the sense of operational execution. That's going to be part of it. But a strategic conversation is a conversation about what's in the system that is creating the lag. And the trap, the mistake is that we will start as leaders thinking, well, God, something's off here. So we need to actually, let's go in this direction a little bit more, or change direction. It's not working. Let's go. You got to get momentum. How do you get momentum? Consistency.
Right. Yeah. And I love your comment, Blaine, right? And there's a lag. It takes time. You measure it, obviously. You go grab your latest Peter Drucker book and you measure it. And then when that occurs, there's that natural feeling. So you start inserting yourself.
Yeah.
So rather than things that can be delegated, and it's not a matter of whether the things should be delegated, things can be delegated. You start pulling things back.
Yep.
So it could be something that you did delegate to someone and you start taking it back, because now we're going to change direction, momentum. We're not going as fast as I thought we were going to go. So I'm stepping in. I love those 3 words. I'm
I'm
stepping
stepping in.
in.
Yeah. And one of the ways that starts to show up, this was also part and parcel of a conversation we had earlier today with a client, is leaders will find themselves, listening to the last person they heard, and, and what they end up doing is saying yes to something. Most often, part of what sabotages them is momentum is saying yes to too many alternatives.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying this. It's not working real well. Can we do that? Oh, yeah, let's do that instead. I mean, this doesn't have to be major shifts in direction, but it has everything to do with, from a systemic perspective, a shift. You insert yourself, and the insertion is, I'm going to sign off on this new initiative. And so you end up stacking initiatives, and pretty soon everybody's going, what the hell are we up to?
Right. Yeah. Which hooks into, right? You reward activity more than outcome. So you start looking at it saying, well, we're not there yet, but by God, we're busy.
I see asses and elbows. There's a whole lot of people digging out there.
Yeah, that good old Navy term. Yes,
Navy term.
actually, yeah, that's very true. Asses and elbows, baby. But yeah, you start looking at it going, all right, I'm rewarding activity. This is, by God, we're busy. We must be moving forward. Something must be going forward. Did we get there? Well, no, but we're busy.
But we're busy. There's a lot of, these chairs are moving all over the place on this deck.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly. I don't know what it means, but I'm busy.
Yep. And
busy.
the final mistake here is confusing or having confusion enter into the conversation.
Yeah.
You call it passion. I'm passionate about this. Yeah. But the team begins to feel instability, and it has to do with the underpinning. It has to do with these top 3 mistakes, and it creates uncertainty. And the human mind does not work well with uncertainty, and so you end up freezing the system.
Right. Yeah. So leaders, as you look at these 4 mistakes, and there are others, we love taking the big 4 every week. But as you take these, just to think about these from your organization perspective, and what happens then. And notice I've been working really hard to get these down to 1 sentence.
Yeah, and you're doing a great job on this. I mean, my kudos, truly.
Like that 1 sentence, which is just right. Here's the needle, baby. You start to priority shift mid execution, which hooks into that thing of, okay, I know we've said this is where we're going to go, but I've got a new priority.
Yep. I said yes to something that was unexpected. And now, because I said yes to it, we got something else added into the mix. What comes off, something just went on the plate. What's going to come off the plate?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And as that goes on, in particularly, they start, alignment gets sacrificed. Now everybody's out of alignment because now we're in the mindset of this too shall pass.
Yeah. We're going to wait it out.
Yes.
We're going to wait it out.
Right. I had to chuckle with number 2 because it reminded me of a joke, and it may not be appropriate, so I won't say it here while we're here. I'll tell you after we're done. I'll tell you the joke.
Okay.
About looking busy.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, one of the things that in organizations, and I've seen this in teams that I've led, and we see this with people that we coach, there's this illusion that when we look busy, we're successful. And it goes back to kind of that mistake, that leader's mistake. And it's generally caused by fear.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not looking busy, if I don't appear to be doing something, therefore I don't appear to be value to the organization. I'm not. Yep. It's an extrinsic form of value.
Activity is valued, not impact. And
right.
So this is where, slavish allegiance to metrics will compromise what you're doing really quick. The metrics become the goal.
Well said.
And when the metrics become the goal, energy follows attention. All of a sudden, you've got diverted attention, because I mean you're gonna say, well, we're paying attention to that because KPIs are measured in this way. I mean, this is what. No. For the sake of what? We're going to talk about that in just a moment here, but for the sake of what are we doing this? Where does alignment again is horizontal? You're working with when you think of an organization as being comprised of different activity bands. You're working horizontally. Yes, there's input coming up above and from below, but the actual work is done horizontally in the system. And that's where alignment really needs to occur. Because that's where the handoffs happen. And if you don't have that, smoothed out from an alignment perspective, you're going to have some difficulty here. And that one of those difficulties is revenue.
Yeah. Well, you end up, there's revenue, but it's way harder, which is nice, proper English, way harder,
way harder.
Yes. But it feels, but you notice which because the alignment has shifted and you're out of alignment and congruence has ended, everything is harder. It's harder to make money. It's harder to turn a profit. It's harder to do the things that we're going to do. It exists, but now it's really harder. And I don't remember it being this hard before, which is a symptom. That's a nagging little yellow light that should be flashing on your shoulder right here. When it's harder, that means that you're out of alignment. Your priorities have shifted. Your team is feeling busy. They're not in alignment. And now things are harder than it should be. And should be is a dangerous word.
Should be, yeah. Because think about it in terms of flow states. When you're in flow, I mean,
good point.
There's the Buddhist, some of the Buddhist teachings talk about effortless efforting. I mean, you're actually doing something, but it feels effortless.
Right.
And when you start getting out of flow, another word for that is misaligned, you start feeling the pinch. You start feeling like, the stress starts building up, pressure starts building. I mean, all of these things, which have direct impact on both the top line and the bottom line, because you're expending resources in ways it shouldn't be, which affects the bottom line. You're going to have an impact on the top line too, because you're not paying attention to what you need to be paying attention to. And partly that's because your attention is hijacked. And, when we're looking at symptom number 4 here, there's no white space to think, to be able to step back and go, what's it all about, Alfie? What's going on here?
Right. Yeah. Now you're in the I'm too busy mode.
Yep.
Which
that's
horrible.
Gets a little squirrely. So when we're looking at this, it's squirrely. Another very specific, articulated way of talking about leadership. Squirrely.
Highly technical term. Exactly. Yeah.
And our friend Brian Tracy.
Yeah, I love Brian Tracy, man. If leaders, if you haven't looked or read anything from Brian, go find stuff from Brian. Read stuff from Brian Tracy. But the true test of leadership is how well you function in a crisis.
Yep. When all about you are losing their minds, do you maintain a sense of stability and control and equanimity? Because again, how we define leadership, and we're going to talk about this in this next slide here, but leadership is an influencing activity. It's not a command and control activity, ideally. I mean, now a lot of people try command and control. It'll blow up in their face, literally and figuratively, in today's world. Influencing, you influence through mood states, you influence through energetic presence, all of those sorts of things. So if you're not giving yourself room to actually get grounded and settled, the true test of your leadership is how well you function in a crisis. React,
very much so.
Respond.
Yep, very, very much so. Doctor?
Yeah. So we've kind of teased an introduction to this, but leadership is the activity of influencing, not command and control. Influencing. It's a mood state. It's a energetic state. Influencing others. People will move. I mean, the leadership causes movement. Period. The end. That's what it does. It causes movement. People will move either physically or mentally or energetically, emotionally, the minute they hear you're coming into the room. the minute you enter the room, things are set in motion. Most leaders aren't particularly clear about what they're setting up for themselves that they now have to clean up oftentimes. So influencing others, why do we want to pay attention to this? Because you're looking to co-create. Ownership is transferred here. It's not just my idea anymore. It's our idea. This is where alignment starts to come into play. Coordinated movement. Ideally, what you're doing is you're moving into territory you've never been before. And because you're moving into territory you've never been before, you're growing, you're expanding. You don't know how to do it because you've never been there before. So the guarantee in this is you will be entering areas where conflict is absolutely crucial to have in place. Conflict, disagreement, tension, friction.
Yeah.
Because you can't move without friction. The challenge for a leader, the challenge for the leader's teams oftentimes are, how do you coordinate movement in the presence of, and how do you actually leverage conflict so that you can continue moving? Yeah. And conflict has to do with, what am I not seeing that you're seeing?
Yeah.
Help me understand. And all of this is in pursuit of something that, we call a worthy ideal. And this is not the vision. This is not the vision. Started off by saying, what does the vision make possible? What's important about a vision isn't the words. It's what it makes possible. And it makes possible access to what we call the worthy ideal, to what matters to the individual, to the team, to the organization, what matters. And those three components, individual, team, and organization, have to line up in a significant way. There's not going to be a total match, but there has to be enough synergistic matching there that you can actually count on it.
Right.
So that's what we're looking at with leadership.
Yeah. And I love that, because when you think about that hook, and in leaders, I would challenge you to think about that and ask that last question based on your vision. What is it that it makes possible?
Yeah.
That's where your team finds value. Ask that question. Inevitably, even with folks that we've coached and work with on this particular topic, we get back to that question and it still comes back to, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's that.
Oh, that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that. Okay. Get really clear on that.
Yeah. And here's the challenge, and this is why the visionary trap, it comes into play here. If you're focused exclusively on the vision, you do not make accessible people having a way to articulate what matters to them. And
Right.
let's just say in a 100-person organization, if you're working this effectively, you will have, at the end of the day, when you're asking the question, what matters, you will likely have 99 different answers to that question at an individual level.
Mhm.
Then the leadership challenges and the management challenges, how do you organize those disparate 99 separate what matters into a cohesive direction
Right.
that everybody says, God, I'm in. I can't wait to make this happen.
I can get behind I think the catchphrase is, I can get behind that.
I can get behind that. Yes.
I can do that. Yeah. Love that.
So-
So reframing, one of the things that we over the last few weeks as we've kind of headed into it, and it's what does it mean to reframe thinking when we think of visionary of the topic, and particularly this week, visionary traps. But we've been kind of leaning in on this, and I love this. There's the old assumption is vision alone creates growth. I've got a vision, but I haven't determined what it is that it makes possible.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to do that, there is, and you and I've talked about this, gosh, Blaine, many, many times, and there's a power of you out there, listeners, on this topic about the difference between inspiration and motivation.
Yep.
And really the reality with the team is if you reframe your thinking, leaders, the reality is coordinated movement turns vision into traction. Coordinated movement encompasses that for the sake of what? In order to coordinate, there must be that piece that Blaine was just talking about, which is not the vision. It is that what is that makes possible. And how do we move toward that together, collectively.
Mm-hmm.
That is not a go take the hill exclamation. Okay, kids, go climb that hill.
Yep. That's not what we're looking at here. Yeah, that's motivation. We want
That's
inspiration.
motivation.
Why does climbing that hill matter to you? Why does it matter to you? What does it make possible that you wouldn't get to have, do, or be if we
Right.
didn't take that hill?
Right.
As
And
an
it's not to
example.
diminish the importance of motivation is important.
Oh, it absolutely is. Yeah.
Motivation is awesome. It is motivation. The simplest way I explain motivation is that you get something for doing something.
Yep.
Inspiration is the long game. Inspiration is the long game. Motivation is the short game. And stability creates confidence to execute. We talked about that in the kind of the 4 mistakes, right? Instability. In order to execute, there must be confidence.
Mm-hmm.
There must be other C words, that clarity and other kinds of, things that go in along with it. There's a bunch of C words.
Yeah, C words.
Yeah. But stability, having that stability, creating confidence. And it's funny, I would imagine leaders, and Blaine, we've seen this in organizations we work with, without that confidence, without that stability and that confidence to execute, the team stalls out.
Yep. Yep. And when it stalls out, again, this is a reliance on the vision as the as literally the motivator. Inspiration lives in for the sake of what? That's where inspiration lives. What you tap into there is the soul of aliveness. Yeah. Yeah. We talk about the soul of business experience. And that's, a placeholder for all of the work that Doland and I do with our clients, the soul of business experience. How do you connect to what makes you alive? How do you connect to that creative font that produces innovation, that allows people to say, ooh, I want to be a part of this, that sort of thing.
Me,
pick me. And, when you've got this for the sake of what in place, the role clarity. Yeah, and Jim Collins talked about this in his book, Good to Great. You get the right people on the right bus in the right seats. And it's a focus on roles, not on position, not on title. It's a position. It's basically, here's the role that needs to be done well. Who on the team can fulfill that role most elegantly and most effectively?
Right.
So flexibility in the organizational hierarchy, the org chart, absolutely becomes paramount. You see yourself as a designer. You're continuously redesigning in order to achieve what it is that you're after. And one of the ways that you begin paying attention to, is the design effective or not, is where's the bottleneck? Yeah. Where aren't we as effective as we could be if we clarified the role and then we brought somebody in to match that role more elegantly?
Yeah. Love that. And then ideas like this bullet, ideas must move through systems. In its simplest term, leaders, as we talk about this, and Blaine, you mentioned this about the horizontal nature, which requires systems, right? So ideas must move through systems. There must be a mechanism in place for ideas to be addressed. And not all ideas get adopted. We know that. We used to call them hairball ideas.
Yeah.
Furball. But their ideas must move through a system, and there's a bunch of reasons why. But when we're looking at stability to create execution, and roles to remove bottlenecks, which is, I love your comment around roles, Blaine. That's really so important. Those ideas, each individual, because we're now moving towards for the sake of what, which is everybody's unique value that they bring to it, which means they bring a unique idea on what that means and how they execute against that. There must be a system to address those ideas.
Yeah. To vet them and then to implement them if it's appropriate to implement them. This is one way that you begin to short circuit the all too common tendency to say yes.
Yes.
To say yes. This doesn't seem to be working as well as we could. Well, you haven't really given it time, but here's an idea. And okay, let's do that. So now
So
all of a
true.
sudden you've got, attention getting scattered here.
Right.
Ideas have to move through the system. And do you have a system that, allows for appropriate vetting? And then that activity, this last point here, has to convert into results. So it's not just activity. Yeah. For the sake of what? We keep our keep our eye on the ball.
That is the result. That is the result. And when you do those things, it's always interesting when I see organizations come to a realization and practice these reframes. The things that you think of from a vision, strategy, tactics perspective, more money, greater profit, blah, 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 more clients, blah, 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 blah. There is a gravity. They pull behind these steps. The accomplishment of those outcomes pulls those. It doesn't lead them. When you follow these steps, it pulls those outcomes.
Yeah.
They
And
occur.
and we call this a leadership reframe because strategy, tactics, vision, strategy, tactics are the typical ways that people think about moving things in an organization. Let's
Right.
get the vision clear. Out of that, we'll develop the strategy, then we move into tactics. Our leadership universe model says, okay, that's all well and good. We got to have that. No question about that. But underneath that, what's driving all of this? And that has to do with mindset. It has to do with the way we think about things.
Yes.
How we hold it in our minds. How I think about something generates an experience, and that experience generates behavior.
Yeah.
Thought, feeling, emotion, behavior. We want to be, and this is the reframe, we want to begin to drop into an exploration of the underlying mindset. What's in place in the system? Because oftentimes it's invisible.
Yeah, very much so. And all of these lead to, I love this kind of just the button up statement: when structure rises, empowerment follows.
Yeah.
And structure is not, when we're talking about this, these are pillars that you operate your business on, that you operate relationships on. Structure is not a rigid. We're not talking about SOPs and when the structure, I feel like I'm going to launch into a statement about accountability, but
There we go.
But when structure rises, empowerment follows. And what we're saying is when that stability exists, when roles remove bottlenecks, when ideas are addressed through systems, when you're looking at activity and measuring it towards the result, which is moving towards that, what it is that we're working towards, that for the sake of what, that structure allows your organization and the individuals in it to be empowered. And empowerment doesn't mean they can just go willy-nilly. Empowerment means that they know what steps to take to move forward confidently. They know what steps to take. That's empowerment.
Goes back up to confidence. Stability creates structure, provides enough stability for confidence to actually be curated.
Yeah. There's your reframe.
That's
so your mindset. Yeah. You do the first one.
Yeah. On the mindset, we just, we talked about that, underlying our leadership universe model, we've got vision, strategy, and tactics for sure. But underneath that is, what's the mindset?
Yeah.
You protect strategic thinking time. Yeah. This, we talked about white space. Do you have white space so that you can actually examine your thinking, where you can actually invite members of the team to examine our thinking? What assumptions are we making that we haven't vetted, that have been, we were talking to a client today, and they were bringing in, 12 years ago we did. And it's kind of, no, time out.
What? Hang on.
What are you noticing today?
Right.
So you want to be able to think, protect strategic thinking time. What's actually in place here? And you do this through questions. This is where the influencing piece of leadership comes into play here. When you move away from command and control, which is a telling sort of a modality, you move into, from influencing, asking questions. And you begin practicing, and you become skilled at asking high quality questions. Questions serve two purposes in an organization. One is it generates balloons. I gotta love this. But the most obvious one is you get information. You ask questions to get information. No question about that. But also, it sets direction. When you ask somebody a question, they go someplace to find an answer. Ideally, you're using your questions to send people searching in the direction you need them to be going to find an answer that's appropriate for moving in that direction.
Yeah.
And that's a very interesting skill set to develop.
Yeah. That's so important because it hooks right. You allow others to own decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And the key word is allow. And boy, leaders, that's hard to do.
Oh boy.
That's it. You lean in, you allow others to own their decisions, to go find the answers to those questions. You grant them permission to move forward with it. That's a critical step from this is your mindset, which by the way influences their mindset. If they know that you don't allow them, or that they're going to be interceded because you're stepping in, I'm stepping in about halfway into the decision, chances are they're not going to move forward.
Yep.
They're not going to go seek the answer to that question because decisions inspire questions.
Yep. And we could go into a whole conversation around the question. Yeah, oftentimes that question is how. Yeah,
next power cue. There you go.
Moving into prioritizing alignment over excitement. Squirrel.
Oh yeah,
squirrel. This is why people say yes so often. Oh, there's a new idea. I remember. I'm reminded of a story that was that actually Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon.com, tells about one of his key employees early on in the organization's growth. Because Bezos just ideas like popcorn, and he was always coming up with ideas for things. This was pretty new in their development. So he was just imagining all kinds of things. And this lieutenant of his, there was a good friend and also a colleague, said, "Jeff, stop it. You have to stop bringing new ideas to the table. We haven't got traction on the old ideas yet." And he said, that lesson was really hard for me to learn.
Right.
Because I would get all excited about this new thing. And I wanted them to be excited about it. Okay, cool your jets. Just cool your jets. You have to prioritize alignment. And again, alignment is a horizontal, not just a vertical. Most people think of alignment as a vertical alignment. No, it's horizontal alignment. How are the handoffs going? Now, you will have alignment vertically if you're doing this well, but
sure,
alignment becomes and this is where elegance comes into play. You don't have to go back in and clean up after yourself. All of that stuff. And this is where that next one, you start building coordinated movement in pursuit of that worthy ideal, which is what you're aligning around, is that worthy ideal.
Yeah.
So all of this comes into play here. And it's a mindset that begins with a focus on for the sake of what?
Yeah, I love that, just because it's that question, right? Because coordinated movement can be interpreted as, okay, I've got the team together, we've cooked our plan, we've got our work breakdown structure, we've got dates and times, and we got ownership, and nobody asked the question. Yeah. Does it move us into that worthy ideal? Does it move us? Are we in alignment with the worthy ideal? Is everybody in it?
Yep.
Are they inspired? And then the last bullet we've talked about, and it goes to the rule of three. Say it 3 times, 3 ways. Measure outcomes, not motion. Previous slide, we called it, people fall into the trap of measuring activity rather than outcomes. This is that same statement. You measure outcomes, not motion. And motion, by the way, is not an activity. Motion is a feeling.
Yep. It's a consequence of an activity.
Yes. Motion is that I feel like I'm moving. We feel like that we're on a roller coaster. The activity is I'm on the roller coaster. The motion is that rock in my stomach because I'm upside down.
So this has
what do you do?
Yeah, what do you do? I mean, part of the reason that Dolan and I are doing these whole Power of You programs is, yeah, we've got a combined almost 100 years of leadership development work. Yeah, in harness as well as in teaching capacities.
In
It
harness
has,
is a good statement. Yeah.
it has to translate into something tangible.
Yeah.
And that's what we want. We want to be able to say, yeah, okay, leadership isn't this, this little kernel. Leadership is this broad, expansive, everything is touched by the activity of leadership in the way that we define it, influencing in order to co-create coordinated movement in pursuit of a worthy ideal. How do you govern your behaviors, starting with you? How do you start governing your behaviors to make this thing happen?
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. It's with clarifying, and the when you have clarity, it gives you permission and the ability to delegate your decision.
Mhm.
Because if you have clarity with priorities, if I know what our priorities are, and clarifying is not just you, clarifying is you and your team. And it doesn't mean they shook their head and said, yeah, I got it, because they don't got it.
No.
But clarify your priorities, they don't got it. Clarify and you just want to hear that so you can move on for speed's sake. Okay, they got it, I'm out of here.
Yep.
But it is that when you're delegating, delegate decision authority visibly, which also means explicitly, which also means setting up, you got to have bumper rails, which also means there's escalation, which also means, but that whole act of that delegating that decision authority means you're willing, you have the willing and the willingness and the vulnerability to step back and grant permission for them to move forward.
Yep.
And that's your governing behavior as the leader. The willingness to step back and grant permission and be present.
And if you've got scorecards, I say if you've got scorecards, you better have scorecards.
If
you want to have scorecards, but you want the scorecards to be measuring what is appropriate to the movement that you want to have, to the outcome that you want to have in place here. That's what I remember. I was doing some work in Zambia years and years ago for the World Bank, and I was I was literally out in the bush. I mean, we were off the beaten trail, and I had a group of these were bankers, world bankers that were administering a big pool of money that was intended to actually create infrastructure in Zambia. And I said, okay, what are your scorecards? I mean, what's the score? How are you paying attention to how this is being done well?
Yeah.
Because a large part of it had to do with building roads into these inaccessible areas. And they were very proud. They said, yeah, we are measuring the number of culverts that are installed. The number of culverts, drainage.
Wow. Yeah.
Because we had to cross a whole bunch of stuff. So how does the water flow with culverts? And I said, well, you seem to be behind in your objectives here. You're not quite where you said you'd like to be. And this is one of the reasons I was there. And I said, where are these culverts? And they were all stockpiled. They had measured the culverts coming into the country. And we have got culverts. Only about 5% of them had been installed. But this was their metric. Do you have culverts? We've got culverts. That's proof that what we're doing is working.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I think we need to examine that metric just a bit.
Yes. If that's how you want to proclaim success, that's a good idea. However,
claiming success, but in the face of this doesn't seem to be. You don't have the roads aren't there. Anyway,
no,
a whole other story.
That's awesome. I love that. It reminds me of some conversations I've had around scorecards with clients. Like, what are you doing? What are we doing? So and then we go ahead. Oh, anyway, I was going to say I was going. So protecting white space. So look, leaders, one of the things that we will have a propensity to do when this is a governing behavior. I had this conversation with a leader in a company. Gosh, it's been a few months, But when we find space in our calendar, the very first thing that we do, when we go through the act of delegating and we assign things and we see things open up in our calendar, we instantly fill it with do.
Yep.
More meetings, more decisions, more. And take time when you're doing that inside of the body of your work. Protect your calendar, protect your time. There's only 3 domains in business: people, time, and money. Protect that domain and protect your white space. And that white space for strategic thought, a lot of times you will have a little whispering, and you always think of a Jiminy Cricket just sitting on your shoulder. With leaders, it's a Disney thing, check it out. But Jiminy Cricket sitting on your shoulder, whispering in your ear about something. If I'm not providing value. But if you're not providing white space for strategic thought, which means not new ideas, but you may be evaluating, you may be looking at scorecards, you may be measuring, you may be asking, are we on the right track? Or how do I help my team do more? Or protect that zone in your calendar so that you have those moments for strategic thought. Covet those, because those are high value minutes.
Yeah. And this is a mindset shift. So the
Huge.
shift is, yeah, it is. Instead of, I do, therefore I am, I want to go
Yes.
to, I think, therefore I am. I'm going to bring Rene Descartes in here. But the idea of strategic thought.
Yeah.
When you're sitting quietly in your office or in your whatever space you're in, and people walk by and they see you just kind of going, most leaders don't want people to see them going, Thinking requires solitude. It does. Strategic thought requires quiet, the stillness that allows for stuff to begin to surface.
Yes, it
The
does.
challenge then is because there will be ideas that begin to percolate in there as well, which is great news because, it's new direction, possibilities, which is what leadership's about. But you want to be able to challenge ideas that percolate, ideas that pop up against executional capacity. It may be a great idea, but this kind of goes all the way back to momentum. Yeah, you want to be able to ensure that you have momentum as long as it's in the direction in which you said you wanted to go, and it's producing the results that you have, that you want to have. Challenge ideas, the introduction of new ideas against executional capacity.
Right.
Is the team in a place that they can actually take this on? Or are you going to actually, throw the balance off? Throw the alignment off?
Yes. Which goes back to, for those ideas, wrap those ideas in the words, for the sake of what?
Oh, there's a novel idea.
Start there. Start with
there.
For the sake of what? Ask that question. Why it matters. And here's what happens. And I know we've only been at this for 45 minutes, but here's what happens, kids. Profit becomes predictable. One of the things in business is that inability to be comfortable because we see this happen. And there's always going to be peaks and valleys. But the intention is, by focusing with some of the behavioral context that we've talked about here, is it enables you to move your business into a predictable manner. Ease and elegance begins to take place. You reduce unintended consequences.
Yep. And when you don't have unintended consequences to deal with, velocity actually increases because you're not distracted.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're allocating resources in a way that is actually producing the results you said you want. And, as a consequence of this, your culture, the organization, culture, real quick definition of this, it's the ways we've agreed to do things together. That's what culture is. It's how we've agreed to actually play nice in the sandbox.
Doesn't have to be hard.
Doesn't have to be hard. Culture stabilizes under pressure when you've got these things in place. Okay. Oftentimes what you'll see is when pressure increases because we haven't had an intentional focus on for the sake of what that is aligned throughout the system, people start running to the wood piles. and you got all kinds of unintended consequences as a consequence of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that in turn, innovation scales. And it's, as I was thinking about these bullets earlier, innovation in your organization, if you're not innovating, you're dying.
Yep.
So that's a really, really important part for your business. A lot of organizations talk about, well, we're going to scale our company. Well, when you scale, you have to innovate.
Yeah.
Because you're doing things you've not done before, which means you've got to think about them differently and create. Innovation is creating. So innovation, through these steps, innovation scales instead of stalls out. When innovation stalls, you lose your uniqueness. Your business is that slow spiral of death.
And one of the things about scaling is that how people hold the idea of leadership starts to shift as well.
Yeah.
Right at the very beginning, we talked about, leadership is about causing movement. Everybody's causing movement in the system all the time. This is not a function of role or title. The minute somebody comes into the office, the minute something happens with the team, movement has happened. Movement has changed. So leadership multiplies across the organization because people begin to recognize they are, in fact, leaders. And they start looking through the lens of, not am I a leader or not, but they start looking through the lens of the kind of movement I'm generating here, is it effective or not? So they look through the lens of effectiveness. Am I causing I am causing movement, no question about it. But is it in service of this for the sake of what? Even if I'm, the low man on the totem pole, I'm still causing movement.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
I love
what this
that.
begins to do.
That multiplication factor.
So one of the ways that this gets tripped up is you get attached to some things. Where are you confusing motion with progress? So these are just some questions for you to consider. We're not going to belabor these a whole lot here. These are pretty straightforward. But where are you confusing motion with progress? It's a key question to begin with. You see a lot of activity out there. Is it getting the kind of movement that you need to produce the results you say you want?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love the next one. What decisions are you unwilling to release? Leaders, I would encourage you, when you make the list of the decisions, is to follow up that with the 7 whys and get really down into the nub of why, and do that and try that. Look, minimum 7 whys.
Yeah,
Ask yourself the 7 whys. I'm uncomfortable. Well, why am I uncomfortable?
Yeah.
And then work your way down through that.
Oh yeah,
you'll be there for a little while.
Oh yeah,
won't feel good, but you'll be there.
Who's waiting for clarity from you? Now, here's
That's
how would I describe this? We think that we need to have buy-in from everybody in order to have things working. No, you don't. Yeah, the second and third follower are the ones that you want to have on board with you, because when we're looking at influencing here, you're not going to have everybody say, "I'm in, coach, put me in." You're going to have 2 or 3 key people that you absolutely have to be on board with you. Who are those 2 or 3? And what kind of clarity do they need from you that they don't currently have based on your experience? They seem to be just a little off center. Okay. What do they need to hear? What do they need to explore? What questions need to be asked that will bring them into a greater sense of alignment with that for the sake of what?
Yeah. Love that. And then what would change? What's going to change if structured mattered as much as vision? That's a scary point, because we're taught as leaders to lead with vision. This is where we're going. And that structure that we've talked about, again, isn't a rigid structure. It is the underpinning on how you accomplish that.
Yep.
That is what we're talking about. It's a superstructure from an architectural perspective.
One of the ways go ahead. I'm sorry, I stepped on your toes.
No. But if that's what would change if structured mattered? What if those 2 were at parity? What would change? And it's an interesting question to ask yourself, that are they at parity?
Yep. Does structure facilitate the execution in a way that is elegant, that is minimally invasive, that provides the basis for effortless efforting? Oftentimes, we inherit structures from those that went before us. We have in our mind models of what an organization structure is supposed to be. It's this hierarchical, top-down sort of, all that kind of stuff. Think of yourself as a leader. Think of yourself as a designer, and you are continuously redesigning, designing and redesigning structure to match the current objective that you say is important. Oftentimes, if we're not looking at structure, we're not looking at, okay, what needs to be tweaked and tuned here. You end up feeling like you're trying to fit a round peg into a square hole, the square hole being the structure. You want to have structure be pliable. And this is where strategic thinking, having time for this, comes into play here. You sit back and you just kind of start cogitating a little bit. What's the bottleneck here? That's you start considering process. You start looking at it through the lens of, I'm a designer. Well, how would I design the most effective organization to achieve this outcome? Not how can I use what I already have to achieve this outcome?
Yeah.
You want to get the horse in front of the cart here.
Yeah. Yep. That's a lot of leaders. And here's a screenshot this. It's just a quick
bring this
reference.
Up. There we go.
For you. Right. Visionary overload, priority shift, decisions wait for you, busy but not aligned, team energy thinning, no time to think. And then the leader's mindset, strategic focus, protect your white space, delegation, empower clear decision rights, aligned execution, prioritize, coordinated movement for the sake of what? An outcome orientation, champion results, not activity. Just a quick little thing you can grab. And then what happens? Doctor?
What happens by being the visionary? I mean, literally, you do feel as if you're on top of your game.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I'm winning here. I'm winning. We're winning. All of that stuff starts to come into play here. Building coordinated movement creates legacy. Now, there's a dichotomy here. Being the visionary does feel powerful, which is why there's gravity to it. But you don't want to just focus on the vision. The for the sake of what is a legacy question. So building coordinated movement in service of that for the sake of what is where the legacy actually comes into play here. And that's important to understand.
Yeah. And then ideas inspire, systems scale. The ideas are, we talk about innovation. Ideas are innovation in their rawest form. It's an idea. The inspiration is what gets people out of bed in the morning and aligns them for the sake of what? The systems give that the permission to breathe, to scale in the body of the organization.
And then excitement. I mean, just think when people are excited, there's a light that goes on in their eyes. I mean, literally, it's kind of like, ooh, excitement generates and sparks this whole notion of growth. Empowerment is what sustains it, because in an organization, again, this goes back to structure and goes back to culture. We have ways of organizing that oftentimes are dependent on permission. Yeah, I've got this great idea. Wow, but I need sign off.
Yeah.
No, you don't. I mean, you probably do in some way, shape, or form here, depending on what some of the fiscal guidelines are that you have in your organization. But empowerment sustains it. When people have agency, and there's a lot of studies that actually point to this. Agency, the experience of having agency, is one of the most effective growth strategies or growth dynamics in an organization. People feel as if they are trusted. They feel as if people hold them capable and accountable, but they also understand that, because it's linked to a for the sake of what that's important to them, they get to go do it. That's what we're after. That's what we're after. So that's when you start unbundling vision is, as we talked about a bunch here, the trap. Because if that's the focus, What's important about vision isn't what it is. What's important about vision is what it makes possible. And that's where you want to actually be. Vision becomes a placeholder, and it's a placeholder for the sake of what? It's a
Yeah.
symbol of for the sake of what? And just a very quick anecdote here. When I was doing a lot of work with Nokia, very early on in the mid 1990s, I literally said, "Okay, now what's the vision?" And they've done a lot of work with Michael Hammer out of Harvard, and they had big strategic initiatives and all kinds of good stuff. I said, "Okay, what is it?" Because I was going to be working with these leaders, and I wanted to have kind of a way to say, "Okay, here's the vision. Let's what are we talking about? How are we going to do this?" And they said, it's real simple. It's Vision 2000. And I went, what? I said, that's our vision, Vision 2000.
What?
And this is in 1995, 96. Vision, what the hell does that mean? And the answer I got back in return was, exactly. What does that mean? It was an invitation, and it was a very deliberate invitation for people to begin articulating, why would this matter to me? Why would this matter to us? And that, interestingly, I mean, I worked at Nokia as an external consultant, when they're, developing their leadership competencies for about 12 years. That period from about 1995, 96, right in that area, up through when I, left in about 2007, 2006, incredible growth. And that Vision 2000, part of what was embedded in that, we want to be the premier seller of handsets, mobile handsets in the world. Motorola was number one at the time. And at that time in 95, Nokia was a third or fourth tier player.
Right.
They had infrastructure. And by the way, they had this little handset. By 1999, they had overtaken Nokia, or overtaken Motorola as the number one seller of handsets in the world. They were also the number one seller of cameras in the world, because the cameras were embedded in the phone. And it all started with Vision 2000. What does that mean? Well, let's see what that looks like.
Such a good corollary to this.
Yeah. So it's not important what the wordsmithing is.
There you go.
2 words, Vision 2000. Okay. Well, that was a whole lot of money spent on 2 words.
Right. Exactly.
Wordsmith that thing. Yeah, boy. Folks, you can find out more about what Doland and I are up to by just scheduling a call with us. I mean, we're not interested in selling you anything, but we are interested in enhancing and improving the way that you think about leadership, how you work as a leader. And if you're interested in actually expanding your capability, your competency in this particular domain, we are, in fact, and I make no bones about this, we are experts in this domain. We really, we got close to 100 years of work in this thing, and we got the scars as well as the results to prove that we actually know what we're talking about. Yeah. So feel free to schedule a call with one or both of us. And the URL is scrolling across here. Absolutely. Just feel free to give us a call, set it up so that you've got. There it is again. Okay.
There it is. It's going across.
Tick, tick, tick.
And and it's always interesting. Those who haven't, by the way, with leaders, we promise not to talk about you in specifics on the power of you at any time. We won't tell your stories, but other than the other stories that we tell. But it's been always interesting having these conversations. So do reach out. Reach out.
Love to hear from you. Okay, and we do these every week, so stay tuned. It's every Thursday. The time will vary just a little bit, but it's every Thursday.
We're here.
All right. Stays up on our LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube channels. So you got them if you want them. Okay.
There you go.
And we will talk to you later. Take care.
See ya.